7 to 9 p.m.
On Saturday.
Charlie Gay.
Charlie Gay.
Oh, he's
He was
amazing.
our demonstrator in March,
He's amazing.
and he's amazing. And so anyway, he'll be featured 250 North Main Street in Mansfield.
Great wine, good food.
Yeah, Charles Gay.
Charlie's a lot
Who
of
cares? Reception at Zulu Gallery for Robin Carroll.
Oh, I'm there too.
That's
Next
Susie.
Saturday, the following Saturday,
Yes,
September 22nd.
yes.
And we have the mini workshops with Jerry Aces, watercolor, and Ann Gorman, Paladine. And we have $15. And you can,
Yeah, they subsidize it.
how do you sign up for those?
You can tell me if you want to go to it.
Okay.
And if you want to pay for it tonight, you can give Jim the money.
Okay.
It's gonna be here, right?
Yeah, it's going to be here. Saturday morning, October 27th, Jerry Aces. And November 3rd, Saturday.
Copious notes all over.
I was trying.
And
Ann.
You're in the club.
So also, we have a show, which will be here.
Small works.
Please, no nudes. 11 by 14
And under,
on
right?
frame, Small Works show, October 9th. And Tuesday.
Is it 2 weeks later, you're gonna have the big show here?
Yes, we're gonna have the big show and the reception. So this will be an opportunity to collect our ribbons and,
We're so confident.
switch up the small works and the really big show.
Okay.
The really big show. 48 inches. Yeah. So it's $5 a piece because we have to subsidize the mini workshops.
You gotta speak up louder.
Can't hear you.
Oh, I'm low. I'm low. Okay. So $5 for each piece, October 9th. And Tuesday, November 6th is
Drop off.
the takedown of the really big show, because Sunday doesn't make it.
Oh, we don't wanna compare that.
Yeah. Anyway, so without further ado, I'm going to introduce diNo, and he's going to tell us how he does his stuff.
Thank you, Frank. All right, good to see some of you that I've met before, and then some fresh faces, which I like. I think that's awesome. And I did this is my second time doing a demo for Foxborough. The other one was a little underpopulated, and we dug really deep into my what I do and a lot of my other kind of technique, and then kind of danced around my mandala magic technique. So this time I'm going to go a little further into it, and my goal is to get you all to even try one, test one out, and at least, and then see if maybe I can make some of you get fascinated into it and join me in this quest to try and figure this stuff out. Because it's a very interesting thing, and it makes you really never look at a circle the same way again. And so mandala is basically an ancient Sanskrit word for circle, and everyone's probably drawn in a circle or done something in circle form before. Has anyone? Has everyone? drawn a mandala or whether you knew it was called a mandala or not, something about drawing in the circle is just therapeutic. It's beautiful. It's even different than drawing on a square, which is also very therapeutic. Just painting art in general is very great for your soul and everything. And circles are, I think, exponentially more powerful. And Carl Gustav Jung, thought the same. Famous psychologist learned after Sigmund Freud, but I think surpassed him substantially. He delved a lot into the ancients, and ancient cultures really loved the mandala, and they loved it for so many reasons. And I think that we've, in history, and historians have only scratched the surface of why they're so important, because you find certain designs in nature that are all over the place, and they are the circular form, like the Aztec, just in general, the Maya Aztec calendar. This is a giant circle. If you've ever gone to Mexico, you've seen this. They have the original, I think, is huge, and it's in stone, and I'm partly convinced that it spins, and or was meant to spin. And I think that a lot of Buddhists and ancient Tibetan history deals with mandalas a lot. They used to have huge ones. They a lot of times would put a human body in the center in a lotus position, and then have the worlds be like all around them, the earthly realm at the bottom, the heavenly realms above. So to them, it's more of there's a circle within a kind of square or a rectangle of more kind of thing. So it's an ancient kind of thing that's really great. But the main thing that I'm going to talk about today is how to animate it, and all the different kinds of methods that occur, and different illusions and mysteries that happen when you spin a mandala. So it takes a regular circle and it makes it go kind of nuts. And so this started for me when I was about 15 years ago, or 14 maybe years ago. I drew a spiral. It was my third mandala. And I had drawn my second mandala. I put up on the ceiling and it spun, and I was like, oh my God, something's here. So I was like, I'm going to try and do something that I know will be very successful and be visually illusion, because I grew up loving illusions. I just think that whenever you can kind of make your mind see something that doesn't seem like it belongs, that it's really cool. I've always been fascinated by that. So I've always on the lookout for them and different things. And so the circle came into my life and just gave me a very good purpose. And so I hung this spiral that took me like 6 months or so to draw, and it's super detailed, one of my most detailed ones. And I actually ended up hurting my back, so I spent a lot of time on the ground stretching, and I needed something to do to look at while I was stretching, because it was so much stretching. And so I basically devised the method to hang the mandala on the ceiling and spin it. And so when I did that, I saw an illusion that was unlike anything I'd ever seen. It was the spiral was going in, it was going out. The more my eyes relaxed, the more amazing it looked. And every time I looked at it, it looked totally different. I saw something incredible in it. There was the different things that would pop out. It looked multidimensional, and I was not even on any drugs or anything. No painkillers. It was totally natural. And my mom saw it too. My parents saw it too. Other people did. So I kind of, right away, I kind of feel like I discovered something that was way beyond what I was capable of understanding. So, and that was actually based on just kind of a mandala spinning, and then viewing it like with just my own eyes, which is a totally kind of different method than some of the stuff that I'll show you. And so that's kind of more of a chaotic method, and it still worked. And I haven't exactly figured out how to activate this particular illusion, but it led me to a few others which are really excellent. And one is I discovered was one of the primitive forms of animation. So has anybody ever heard of a phenokistoscope, or a phenokistoscope, or a praxinoscope? A zeotrope. Someone's heard of zeotrope, right? The zeotrope was an old film-making device that had like an image in the center, and then a bunch of mirrors, like a wheel of mirrors around it. And then you'd kind of, a sequence of images, you'd turn it, and then you'd watch in the mirrors, and it would animate. So it's kind of like this, this is like called a praxinoscope, and you can kind of see from here that it like, so it kind of, the mirrors are angled so that it reflects off the thing below, and it animates. And in the 1830s, they had things called phenokistoscopes, which is my favorite. And they discovered, it was basically like a tool, they called them magic wheels. It was also called a fantastiscope. And they had a few other different names that are really cool. But it was basically like a little device. Some even had like a shield, so you could put your, you'd block excess light out. But it was basically a spinning wheel with an animated drawing on it that would look, see, when you look at it like that without the filter, it just looks like a mess. Our eyes can't really comprehend what's happening. So they discovered that when you look at it through a filter, that it animates. It turns into a different thing. And it makes it come alive. And you see it almost like a movie. So this is like how animation began. Before Disney, 70 years before Disney or more, this was how kids did it. And people would buy like little discs, and you could really animate them. They even, like a lot of them were like kind of like, I can show some at one point, but there's like people jumping through hoops. There's like ones with like an axe guy kind of like, and then another guy dodging it. There's like frogs jumping, snakes. They did all these different things. They even upon further research, they even developed porn based on these things back in the 1830s, which is just, I mean, just ludicrous. But the fact that, you know, this was their form before cell phones, before TVs, before anything. They had spinning wheels. So I found that very interesting. You know, they did, some were more violent, some were happy for kids, some were patterns, and then you had extreme stuff like that. I guess I mean, that industry really does like have a hold of a pretty sick amount of stuff. They really kind of, they just are everywhere. They permeate everything, which is kind of nuts. But so I started, and then I really wanted to break it down. So I wanted to figure out exactly what they did. So a lot of the ones from back then were about 10 frames. Let me actually, I'll show you a couple, just so you can see. They have, they did a very kind of simple form of them back in the day, although the designs are very complex because they did a lot of painting. They didn't have Sharpies like I do, so they just did really detailed paints. But it's it's a very interesting kind of show of what, like just kind of the way they were thinking in the 1830s. You know, there's like different like kind of circus guys. There's different like ballerinas, roses. So there's really so much potential. And you can see like each one of those roses represents what I call a frame or a part. So a lot of them were divided into like 10 parts. That seems to be their main kind of number of things. And so, I don't know, I'll have to see. But so they did things like that, and they kind of took it to one level, but I wanted to take it a lot further. And so I kind of, for you guys, I broke it down. Like teaching this demonstration made me really want to get to the bottom of it and show, basically just kind of set the stages up so I could let everybody kind of get a glimpse of how it all works. So what I'll describe now is just kind of ways that you can think about different kinds of animations, because the potential is absolutely infinite in this. Like anything from just an abstract, like when abstract things work, you know that like technical things will work even better. So it's a combo. There's just so many different areas of art that come into play here, and it's mathematical, but it also doesn't have to be. And I think there's a lot of things that are waiting to be discovered. And so they used to divide it into like 10 parts, 8 parts. But these are what I call like kind of the regulars that you can divide it into. They started doing that in the past, and it's really, they kind of stuck with it because I think the filters, once you have a certain filter, that's another part of it. So if this is like 20 frames per 360, and if this is 20 frames per 60, it will create a certain animation when it spins. But if this is different, it has more slits, it'll create a different animation. If it has less slits, it'll create another different animation. So there's really all these different factors that are kind of working together. And it's, you guys actually caught me right as, like right now I've got a guy in India that he created this app for me called Mandala Magic. And now I have him creating this thing called Mandala Science. Because in my Mandala Magic app, you can take a picture of anything and you can spin it, but it's on a gradient, so you can't tell the exact RPMs. But now I'm in the process, I have them making a program for me so that punches in the exact RPMs, so I can figure out exactly how many revolutions per minute it takes for something to animate and become stable, become like perfect, to reach its state. And I'm very curious because I have this whole plot of how I'm going to research this, and I'm going to be able to try to find links between different numbers of frames per mandala and what speeds they work at, what speeds they harmonize at. And sometimes they all take on different kind of effects and different animation properties, and so I'll kind of show you that before. But so these are the ones, these are kind of the general breakdowns, because I found that every single one of these works. Depending on the speed, depending on the filter, they all work. So the old people, the 1830s, they tended to stick with 10 frames, but you can do a lot more than that. So this one's like 12 parts, and it's 30 degrees per thing. So everything you just really divide by 360. So 360 divided by 30 makes 12 parts. 360 divided by 24 degrees, 15 parts. And so it's kind of interesting how they also progress too, like 30 and 12, 24 and 15, 20 and 18, and then 18 and 20. So they're kind of inverted of each other. And then 36 parts and 36 degrees, 10 parts. It's kind of the opposite of 10 degrees, 36 parts. But they all kind of relate to each other. But so this is kind of the way of thinking about it, like, because I'd like people, the last people I really had involved in this with me were kids. At like when I was in an after-school program and the app came out, I was in an after-school program with 3rd through 5th graders, and they loved it. For like a month, we did all these experiments, and they were like my little like scientists, like testers, and they did all these kind of experiments, and we were like taking pictures of things in the woods and doing all this stuff. So that was like a year ago. So I haven't had anyone join me since. So I'm eager. So that's what I'm going to try and convince you guys. If I can at least just show you guys that it's something interesting, and maybe one of you tries it, that would be great. So those are the parts, and they're all, for the majority, they're mainly even. But you can even do things like this. So this one's got 16 parts, which is 22.5 degrees. So I called that an abnormal one. But there's also, if you think about it, there's ways to do things in between. Like, I'm a musician as well, and I often think about these as being frequencies. Like, when something vibrates at a certain frequency, it hits a pitch, it hits a particular note that's perfect. And it's almost like when these spin at a certain rate, they hit a particular frequency and note that is perfect, and everything lines up and everything works. So while these are the main possibilities, almost like the prime ones, there are also, I guarantee, a lot more different kind of things that you could fit, like the ones in between. And there might even be ways to kind of spiral things, like if you could have something like 20 degrees, and then or say it was 21 degrees, something that didn't actually add up, and you could probably spiral it around. I'll figure that out later and leave that for now. But in the middle section, I wanted to kind of do like typical patterns, some are ancient, some are just normal, but they also all look very interesting when they're spinning. So there's almost a different, just kind of different ideas basically of classic design. So this one is kind of like it's basically the half of the flower of life. So they call this like the seed of life or the flower of life, where you take the circle and you kind of go over another circle, and you inevitably can make triangles out of a circle, which is, if I took it a little deeper, it's just an ancient pattern that's been around forever, and you can see it in ancient cultures all over the place. And when it spins, it's just undeniably beautiful. Like the patterns they link up. It forms all these amazing things, and you can't deny it. The yin yang is like a classic design. Like a lot of some ancient people have believed that the sun and the moon almost work in a yin yang pattern, and there's even different theories. I won't go too deep into this, but I grew up with kind of loving NASA, loving science, and I've grown to kind of really distrust a lot of stuff. So I think as an artist, I really feel that it's better to have a free mind than to be tied down to certain beliefs, so that my imagination can kind of expand. But as I was talking to the guy in India who made my app, he turned me on to Jainism, which is an ancient, one of the most ancient religions there is, like in India and beyond. And the part of their belief is that we are all on a giant spinning mandala. So when I came up to this guy and I told him that I had an idea of doing a mandala project, he took something that was going to be about $10,000 from every other person that I've ever talked to, and he was like, "I'll do it for like $500 because I love what you do and I believe in this. I believe in its kind of power." And so I was like, "Oh my God, yes." So I researched that, and he's been kind of just like a little guidance. But that's kind of an interesting thought. Like if you've seen star trails, you ever seen those photographs of star trails, and then they all kind of form a circle around the North Star? It's almost, one way to think of that is maybe we are rotating around that, and that's just what captures the picture. So it's just an interesting thought. So the yin yang, sun and moon and all the other stuff, double yin yang, which is a very popular shape. It's kind of used in this. This was my mandala Buddha that I created when I was like living on an Old Orchard beach for 3 months. It was like one of the best periods of my life. But I created this Buddha drawing, which is kind of got that same kind of double yin yang. And this one, when it spins, this is actually one of my favorites. And so in the mystery principle that I don't yet totally understand is when something spins like this and it creates that illusion. In this one, creates an effect that almost like if you stare at it, it makes the center kind of sink in, and then the guys like Buddha and the other guys kind of tower over it, and it makes really interesting things happen. And that's why one of the things about this one that's so interesting is that several times when this has happened, I've seen a snake appear from it. And a snake is a big part of like Mayan culture and Mayan creation myth. And to think that, you know, an ancient drawing that, because I followed their pattern, I just kind of, instead of making it concentric rings, I connected everything. So I love dealing with ancient art because you never know. You might discover something that's just like, ooh, that no one's really discovered, or, you know, has been kind of dormant since the ancient times, which is just kind of a potential thing. Hopefully it won't break. All right, so back to these. We've got, so that, and then this one's kind of about based on triangles. So it's got that. So you can think really, I mean, any symmetrical pattern will do something magnificent. So I just kind of created a few of the things. But some of these you can follow a little formula or find other formulas in them. And at different speeds, they all do really different things. So this one has a couple different parts. This grid of circles I've actually found to be incredible. And I'll show you guys a couple, I can spin them on the app and show you guys what they look like in a little bit. You can pick which ones you want me to show so I don't waste anyone's time. But the grid of circles actually came out really amazing. I was very surprised. And this is kind of another one that's kind of like a star of circles. And I could have gone a little deeper and gotten them in there, but you can get the gist of it. And this box spiral actually also looks very cool. Spirals in general, they always look amazing when you spin. Hypnosis is another factor of spinning mandalas and that whole realm that I find very interesting. Because people have, throughout time, you can hypnotize people, and if you do it the right way, and a spinning mandala is something that does it. So what if there's like, you know, a different form of hypnosis that allows you to access kind of something? I don't know. I always think about whatever the potential is, there's a lot of it, I think. And spirals definitely have an undeniable effect on our psyche. And so that's kind of a more tight spiral. This one, when moving slowly, really has that effect. So some of them won't animate when they're slow. You'll just see it slowly rotating. And other ones, like a spiral, will kind of animate when it's slow and when it's fast. And so different designs have harmonized notes at different points. This one's really cool. I love this kind of a square spiral. It's like a staircase. That one provides a really cool effect. And then that's just a tight spiral, which has those invisible white lines. Has anyone ever noticed those when you draw? Sometimes if you draw a spiral and you move the paper, you can see invisible white lines. Anybody ever notice that? I'm not sure what they're called, but I don't know. It's a little another phenomenon about it. And if anyone has any questions, if I'm going too fast or I'm just rambling, please let me know. Slow me down. But and so this is kind of other techniques. So this is just kind of like we've got the tight spiral here and then the super tight spiral, and these are the other ones. And this is how I like to kind of think of. This is how I like to think when I'm thinking about animating a mandala or an idea, try to illustrate an idea, is because you can, when at a certain speed, you could take something like I could put a little person here or a ball or a star or a flower, and then do it every like frame all the way up, and it would animate that whole way, kind of like this one, where you see a person's head kind of start here and then go all the way around, and then he kind of lets go of a ball, and the ball goes into the center. Those can, like you can think of ideas like that. It's almost like it's like giving yourself frames of animation. So that, in that sense, you almost get like 70 frames because you get about 4 turns around an 18 or 15 frame drawing. So it's a way to like, on one just plain image, it can illustrate an effect. And then as it moves, it takes on like a whole nother life of its own, which I find awesome. So you can do all different kinds of things. In that, you could follow that formula and make them kind of go that way. You could take a little longer, get about 90, 100 frames out of that, or even more, and even more. And at certain speeds, it'll keep going. And the only thing you have to just make sure is that, like, if a circle's here, you don't want it to kind of correspond with another kind of similar thing on its plane. But I can kind of show that later. But so there's different concepts as well that I think are very interesting to illustrate. So this one is the circle that starts off big and then turns small, and then as it spins, it'll do the same. It'll go from small to big, and it's because it all stays within a ½ inch of this spot. So a lot of these things do require a lot of measurements. So you'll when you get the frames down, you can kind of plot your object, And you like this one when it spins, the circle will just stay in that spot, and it'll just shrink and go and expand and get bigger and bigger. And this one doesn't change shape, doesn't change size, so that circle will just stay there in that spot when it's spinning. It won't even do anything. And then this one is an example of multiple layers. So you can do multiple, like depending on the size of the circle, you can do multiple layers of animation. So this one has so many, and so this has 3, but this one has like the tree, which changes, and then that is on a totally different thing, a totally different grid. So once you have kind of a grasp of this invincible grid spiral system, you can really go nuts. Yep.
Do you have an image that you can show us in motion?
Yeah. Let me. It's fine. Which one do you guys want to see? Let me show. I have some on here that are already on here, and I have a book of my really good ones that I'll show you guys too. And after we get through that little part, I'll just do this real quick. So there's so that one, the circle grows. This one, multiple frames. This circle stays the same, and then this circle goes from top to bottom. I mean, from bottom to top. So it rises. Like see, it starts down here. As it spins, it goes up to that one. And in the middle, I just kind of left blank. So this one kind of shows the arrows. So this arrow here in this frame starts on the line, right on the frame line. And then as it moves, each frame, it gets a little bit further away until it kind of loops back on itself. So that's a way to kind of make it slightly move, but not totally move. And then this line is just kind of another example of that principle where it just kind of rotates throughout and then kind of completes itself. This one, a good way of showing that animation is in the phases of the moon. So you can see kind of this ball here is a sphere that's all drawn at the same distance from the bottom, so it stays in the same spot, but its phases kind of change. So you can see that one kind of, it looks like it turns like a ball. And this one over here is a bouncing ball, and it just kind of goes up and down twice. So every time this one will change once, and this one will do 2 bounces. So you can make kind of things work on different timings. And then that's just kind of another example. Oh yeah, this is an example of 2 different frame sets. So this outer ring is 20 degrees with 18 parts, and then this inner ring is 15 degrees with 24 parts. So you can make 2 completely different animation speeds and timings in one. And you can do a lot more. There's a lot of different concepts, and I'll get into those in one sec. Let me see if I can find a really good one. Okay, so this is actually
What tool do you use to get all your degrees?
protractor. Just a protractor, yeah. You can do it all with that. And so this is that one. This is this one right here. So you can see it's slow. It really doesn't do too much. But then as you get faster, so like that, here, I can blow that up. You can see it kind of, see one will stay the same, and then the other one will kind of go in on itself. And they get crazy when the colors get involved, because this is all just black and white. When you mix colors and you blend gradients, and you can make, and so instead of making something loop upon itself, like just by rotating, you can make colors like through the color spectrum loop upon themselves, and that's really excellent too. And you can blend different colors, so like even like something like this, if I were to paint this red and this blue, red, blue, you get some almost like a purple or like a mystery color that kind of forms. The one part about this that's a little off is the picking of the thing. So let me try to find. If not, I can just scan a new one. Okay, so this is an interesting one with clouds and the sun. This is actually perfect because it will show the gradient. So there's this, and again, random speeds. You never really know what's going to happen. But then when you can harmonize it, hopefully I can find it. Yeah, and then you can get a little more. Oh. So you go a little bit too much, and it will go more to one side than the other. Oh. And this one has a perfect speed. I can't totally find it. See, that's why I need the RPMs, because then I can know exactly what it will be at. Let me find one. There we go. Well, that's pretty good.
Is this the software
Yep, this is the app. This isn't the Mandala Science one. But so that gradient, so that sun is changing color from yellow to red, and the star is kind of moving before the cloud, and then the gradient in the background is also kind of rotating.
What's that app called?
Mandala Magic. I got it on a card. I can give you guys all a card. And if anyone ends up buying it, I'd give you a free gem. It's only like $2, but it's pretty cool. But then there's also like super speeds. which like when I got the science one, I made sure the guy could get it. I only wanted like a few different things, but I made sure it could go up to like 50,000 RPM, because that's when really crazy stuff happens as well. And so this one has like a super speed where there's almost a certain speed where your eyes can't even control it, and it like loops on itself and almost looks like it's not even moving. So there's all different, it's really kind of all about frequency, I believe. Not really finding the right one. Oh, that's kind of interesting, but so it's just, you never really know what's going to happen at all different speeds. Like, it's kind of, you know, that's so fast. If I knew the numbers, it would all make, I'm really convinced that with the numbers, it would all make sense. Like there's, you know, maybe a certain number that's magic, or that it has all kinds of different things in it, and then different patterns. But I'm really curious to find the math, so stay tuned. Yeah?
So diNo, if whoever's lucky enough to win one of your copies, how are we looking at this? We're hanging it on the wall, are we laying in bed and we're having something spin around? But look, what are we doing? I mean,
Well,
you're showing us so many different.
Well, there's different things. That's the thing. The beauty, like the thing that's very interesting is just like when you get something that works with that animation, it kind of clicks naturally. Like this is one that I did for Save Earth. So I wrote the letters Save Earth, but I also kind of collaborated into like a different kind of image and whatnot. And this like looks like it's pretty much a pattern, but I put like different words into it. So I mean, on its own, it looks really cool. So you can just do that. And these ones, like I have the ones that hang from the ceiling, and they spin. But that, like I said, is something that I haven't totally figured out what makes that magic exactly happen, because that works at slow speeds, and these at slow speeds you can't really get it. But in person, there's some kind of missing thing there. So you can really display them however you want. It's really up to you. If you have the app, then you can take a picture of it and animate it. But otherwise, they look great on their own.
You might find a speed that's going to hypnotize yourself.
I'm looking for it. If I can find it, that would be great. Because they have different. You think about different sound frequencies, like affect like your. I once did an experiment with kids at. I did all these different courses at that after-school program, but one is I set up a tone generator, and like I tested out random frequencies, and like sometimes kids would start laughing. One kid got a stomach ache from one of the tones. So it's like you really never know. And with this frequency.
These kids, huh?
I did. I'm not there anymore, but it was okay. It was a good thing. They were fun, but they really loved it. And that's the thing, is it's good for. It really is exciting for all ages, and you can even you could even set up a one thing we were going to do was set up kind of a pie chart like this on the ground, and then have people kind of stand in it, or you could put objects in it. I did it once. We set up we drew a big thing, and you could pick objects from like around the room and place them in the kind of spots, like, and almost create like 3D build your own one of these. And then we took a picture of it, and it looked really awesome. And kids they really thought that was cool. So there's really a lot of possibilities. And so this is just a book of my collection, because when it's funny, that app I had been working on for about a year and a half with this team in India, and then right when it comes out, the spinning wheel, the fidget spinner craze hit America, and like my app goes on sale pretty much the same day that all these fidget spinner apps went on sale, and millions of people bought those apps, and I sold like 10. But millions of people were millions of kids were buying a $3 app that did the exact same thing as that fidget spinner that they buy and use in classes. It was just, the timing was ridiculous. But then it also came in touch with me discovering phenakistoscopes right around the same time. So I was like obsessed for a couple months. So I went into kind of, these are just a few of the ones that I brought in that are my treasured ones. I was at a phase where I was doing maybe like probably one or two a day or more. Like I would usually sketch it out in black and white, and then if it worked really well, I'd color it. So I have some rejects that I didn't end up getting to, and some ideas. But when I was really in this, I was thinking about it constantly, because not only can you represent patterns, but you can represent concepts and really explore them in a way. Like I have one here that I think is the first political artoon or political mandala, and so it's like this one's kind of a bunch of people around this circle with the hearts changing color, changing sizes, and then kind of a peace sign and kind of crushing war, basically. So it's kind of, so the war, like the peace sign kind of spirals out, hits this, and then war kind of shrinks. And so so you can really think of different, there's so many different things to represent, which is really interesting. So this is the one we actually saw, that spinning one with the clouds. And this one was called color codes. And so I made like a really intense kind of grid, and I did kind of patterns within the, like I would kind of do like maybe, like this one, this orange color goes from this second block to the first block, then back, so that might go. So I had basically all these colors doing all these different things within this one. And so when you spin this at different speeds, different things pop out, and you can see different things. It's like a lot of this is en route to kind of further ideas. Like if I have an idea that I can't totally get to, I have to try and figure out how to get to it. And so this one I want to inevitably do words and make them kind of appear at certain speeds. This one was a fish in a crab, like a fish in a crab. So you spin around this, and the fish kind of goes around. The bubbles like go up, or they go down from the thing. Because that's another thing too. Is at certain speeds, like at certain speeds, this will, or maybe not this one, but at certain speeds, this will go one way. When it's linked up, it'll animate. And then if you move it even a little tiny bit on that little meter, it spins the other way. So it's really, so I'm also curious to find out what makes it change direction, what makes it get to the point when it's perfectly stable and harmonized, and then.
When you see cars driving and you see the wheels going forward.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly. That's a big one. Some of them have the, some of them even have those wheels that have the hubcaps that spin differently. Yeah, the spinners. Those are really cool. I like that.
Do you ever spin those things with a little strobe light?
I've tried it with a strobe. I haven't really found the best strobe light. I think every strobe light I've tried has been like a subpar strobe light, so it's never really done it. But I've been meaning to do that because then you could really, I think you'd be able to see it perfect.
It have the same effect as using your slip.
As the filter, yep. I've been thinking about that, but every time I've tried it, it's always been a strobe that's too long. I need one of the ones that goes.
All these little LED things that are easy to control.
Yeah, those are. I'm going to buy that. You convinced me to buy that because that is what I need. I need that and yeah. Just if it would have to. It just has to go really fast because then that is probably another factor. At what speed? At what rate of strobe does the animation effect kind of?
LEDs go incredibly high speed.
Yeah.
You need a little motor thing to mount the thing on that you can adjust the speed.
I've got that. I've got a couple of those.
It's the strobe speed, and then you don't have to use your PC.
Yeah, that's true. I like that. I'm definitely going to figure that out. I have to get a strobe that works.
So in order to animate these, you have to spin them, right?
Yep.
Okay, so how would you spin, would you take a photo of this and put it in your app? Is
You
that
can.
what
The app allows you to use your camera, so you can just take a picture, and then you just get it centered as best you
Yeah.
can, and then you can just do it from that. The app does it for you.
Okay, but I mean, that, what you're holding right now, that's the original piece of art.
Yep.
correct? Okay, but you're not going to be spinning that.
I can't. Well, not this physical one. See, I could, if in order to do that, you can do like I made this, and this cost like $1 to make, maybe at AC Moore, maybe $1.50. Each one's like 75 cents. But so I made kind of a way to illustrate it, and you can. It's almost like a simple based on that other form. So I actually sold a couple of these. I called them diNo kistoscopes, and they. And I made like other kind of little. I made prints of some of those drawings, so you can kind of just like pop them off and do, and then add it on like that. But it also works for this, which so in order to make this one animate, it goes through the same principle. Oh, I got a little off center. It goes through the same principle. And I'll let you guys during the break. You can test it out. But this one you can even see it when you go like this, just by kind of spinning it and looking at the frames from that. So that thing makes it comes alive in a really interesting way. So it's but the bigger, like I've looked for ones that were really big online, and I haven't really seen anything that big. But I got to finish that because I think when it's full color, it'll look really nuts. But then there's a couple more. There's kind of this one, the rainbow disappearing, growing, rain coming. So another kind of concept. Mandala magic. I wanted to figure out words. So I have a couple that really show words. So this one, like Mandala Magic, has the words going down. So when it spins, they kind of you see it kind of going around like it says Mandala Magic. It looks like just shapes, but those are all letters. But then this one, I can show you. I did a couple. Yeah, I did art in several forms too. So this is kind of another way to do words. So this is like one kind of spiral with the word art. So it goes from like the T turns into the R and then turns into the A, so it kind of morphs into itself. This one's just kind of in that same mandala magic way, although it looks like a pattern. It says art, and then it kind of rotates in that way. And then I had one more, I think. Yeah, this one, just a bigger spiral which says art. So that one actually looks really cool. I like when things spiral in that interesting way. They look really, really awesome. But there's even more ways to do it. Like I've been trying to figure out, this one's really cool, kind of like someone, like this kind of shape here. This circle on this plane kind of stays in one spot, but like the eye moves, this ball, like these circles move. You can really like make so many different things change that it's incredible. And you look at, like you have to really look at it as animation cells. And I don't know, have anyone tried animation? You have? Everyone ever heard of Richard Williams? He was the guy who he animated The Thief and the Cobbler and Roger Rabbit. He's famous for animating Roger Rabbit. But he claims he went to the old Disney animators, and he was a Disney animator for a while, and he said that like whenever they're animating, it's better to be silent. He's like, do you guys listen to classical music? And they like screamed at him, and they were like, no, you have to go in silence. And at first I was like, ah. And then I like tried doing my typical watching movies and like and listening to music and drawing, and these things were driving me nuts. And I really like something with it, like with just free-form drawing, it's very easy to just kind of go in the flow. But with these, they require so much. Like if you mess up on one kind of thing, it can screw up everything, and then you have to erase everything. So it's really, I found that like myself working in silence and really needing it.
So the only tool you use to get the measurements is a protractor?
Yep.
That's it?
Yep. And I made a couple kind of sheets that will show you, and I actually developed like a CD. I found that you can an easy, quick way to do it. But yeah, protractor. I'll just kind of measure out whichever degrees I want, however many frames I think it may need. And like if it's something that I feel may need more frames, I'll do it kind of smaller like this. Or if it's something bigger that's just an idea or a shape, then I'll do less frames. But that's really all it takes. And thinking about it, I found that these really require, like on my whole car ride home or ride here, I'd be thinking about them and trying to figure out the best way to materialize them. And it's really, I really love the fact that you can take a concept and have it kind of become really nuts. So this one like has a lot of shapes. So this one's just kind of metamorphosis of shapes as they go around. So each one, the diamond, they kind of all stay the same, but this one's got the moon effect. This triangle rotates. The circle gets bigger and smaller. The eye, the pupil moves back and forth. The tear goes up. The person kind of moves up and down from a lotus position to a regular thing. So it's really infinite. This one was one of my favorites, and it's got kind of the 3 stationary things. But this guy kind of goes from one bubble. It looks like he flies to the next, and then that last bubble kind of goes into the spiral. I love ending things with spirals because you know you're going to have something really awesome at the beginning. And they all.
Excuse me, but do you know how it's going to look when you're designing it?
I can kind of predict. I got to the point where I could kind of I do a lot of stuff in my head. Like thank God, because I think I'd waste so much time if I didn't. But I've gotten to the point now where I can plan stuff in my head and figure out exactly kind of what I'll need in order to accomplish it. So I'll try it, and I'll always think kind of a few different things. And sometimes I'll test out an idea that just fails miserably. But a lot of times they work. And so, like this one, like when something happened in the news, I forget, some riot or something, I decided to do a unity drawing and see what would happen when you have a black and white section that are almost mimicking each other and then connecting those. And so they I'll show you guys that one at some point, but it almost has a strobe-like effect because it's that pinwheel that's spinning really fast, and these colors are kind of doing that. But then at a certain speed, it turns gray. And and then the hearts just kind of go up, and the two almost blend. So it's like at one point we're separated here and almost opposite, but at a certain speed, we're both melded together in like its own color, a new color. So it takes the concept of unity and makes it really expansive. And the hearts going through, that's the only red color you can see kind of going through. So it takes cool ideas. And this one was another one, like the process of a cocoon and a butterfly coming out of its cocoon. So this one, it kind of starts off as a person. He goes around like this, gets the wings, he goes up, turns into a butterfly. The butterfly crawls into the pupa, and then in here it's the little inchworm, and then turns into a leaf, and then you spin it the other way, and it does the exact same process. So it's like the process of life in reverse, or in the regular way for a caterpillar, a butterfly. So it's very, very interesting. Like this, a tropical scene where different things can happen. Like the crab kind of walks around, the coconuts fall. This is another experiment I wanted to do where I wanted to see if I could get this guy into the spheres visually. So I put him in the middle, and that one looks kind of cool at certain speeds. You can see that in there because they're all in the same kind of plane. That's another thing. Like you use the protractor to get the angles, but the measurements, I'm always making tick marks. So if something, so this, the bottom or the center of this circle might be a ½ inch away from the border at all times. So I make sure that's precise. Or this guy, the center of him might be an inch away from there at every time. So you have to make sure that's precise. So I'll sometimes put little tick marks in with a pencil so that I know where, kind of like a guideline of where things are going. The hourglass, another kind of thing with the kind of squeezing down into a teardrop, he catches it. You really can do it. You can do fantasy, you can do all kinds of different things. A cat grabbing a yarn, so the word cat comes and then it forms a yarn that hangs down. This is a kind of like a walkway. Butterfly, cats, all kinds of different things. So they're really very interesting. Yin Yang, the USA, kind of a patriotic mandala. And then that one looks really cool. And I think that was for 4th of July I did that. The Yin Yang. This one is an alien, kind of an alien abduction, or a guy turns into an oh yeah, no, that is kind of like a spaceship and an alien abduction, so it's another concept. And a really cool one. So there's all different kinds of things like that. I can show you guys some, or we can take a break. But I made, if anyone's interested in trying it, how's it going? I made a bunch of sheets like this that are over there. I made 15, which I think is absolutely perfect if everyone were to decide to do it. But you can take it home as well if you want. But these are this is just how it starts, really. And you can really do anything. If you, it's really kind of just an incredible process. And
If you do those things, if you use your slip thing, you see one effect.
Yep.
You spin it, you see another effect. And if you do the half, you see a third effect.
Yep.
And when you say you're moving things and they're going to, which technique do you generally use?
When I'm kind of testing stuff out,
Yeah.
I'll pretty much always go to the app at one point because it's the easiest. I can just kind of go boom, and then you can see if it's going to work.
Yeah.
So if it in this I have a lot of there's a few black and white ones at the bottom, at the back, so ones that I haven't colored yet. So and if they I got to kind of tweak them a little bit, but it's always good. That's the good thing is you can test it out with pencil. Like if I back in the day, in order like the 1830s, for them to test it out, they really, I mean, you had to either spin it there or you had to be, I think, a little more precise because the app really does make it very convenient. I'd been stressing out for a long time without that app because it made, I'd have to attach it to the ceiling, but then I wouldn't want to spin an original, so I'd want to get a print. And then if I was attaching it to that, it's always risky. So this kind of allowed it to really be able to happen. But there's, so this is just another easy idea. And so it always starts kind of as a black and white. And then when I find one that's worthy of getting taken to the next level, or if I think of an idea, I'll try it. And so this is kind of a guy running, he's getting chased by the ball, and then the ball kind of comes back. So it's almost like he's perpetually not getting caught. But there's all kinds of, it's very interesting. And,
Create your spiral.
which one?
Make a perfect spiral. Like you have.
That I just did I just eyed that out, and I didn't use any tools for that. I just kind of,
No measurement for that. Just
yeah. You can do a measurement. Yeah. So I just kind of, I mean, I can tell if it's like, when I'm turning it around, I can kind of see if it's a little off or if it's straight. And the spirals, and I don't pen it until I know it's good. But I use Sharpies. And then on some, I took like some that maybe take a little more time to fill in. I'll take like ink and a brush, just if I want to kind of do it a little quicker. Like these, yeah, these were a couple too that I have here actually. This is kind of the bubble. I call it the bubble boy. So this bubble blows up and then the bubble kind of goes. And this is another thing that's kind of interesting. You can actually do these on a record player if you have that's another place where I did do it, is you spin it at 33 RPM and then you kind of do the filter up on top of it and it works. And so some don't even have to be, I don't think I drew this one up there, but some can even take up half or take up a small kind of portion, and then you never know what's going to happen when they spin. So The way I look at it is there's so many like things that I like. Up here is a lot of different concepts, and there's just so many more. Like there's, I mean, you could put like dots. I haven't really even tried dots yet, but making a certain amount of dots in a strategic way that kind of could form something when it's spinning, or a like even even more of the, like I said before, the off-kilter ones. So just different frames that aren't exactly mathematically perfect. It's kind of abstract ones, just splashing stuff. You really never know what you're going to get. Like there's been so many times. Like I could just take it. I'll try it now actually. We'll take a completely random picture of you guys. So something totally asymmetrical, and then when it spins. And this is another very cool concept, and one thing I want to really figure out is at what speed do certain formations form in the center when they spin, because almost always at a certain speed you can get a certain really fast speed. You start to see like pentagons or septagons, or like really like all these different stars in the center that form. And they're really, like, you'd never suspect it. Like something, let's see what happens when we take a picture of you all. Like just, so smile. All right, so we got that, which is just totally abstract, no symmetry there. And then when we spin it, just see you guys at first. Try not to get dizzy. And then we go like that. It starts to kind of blur. And then different things start to happen. And then at super speed, I can. So yeah, there we go. That's actually perfect. So then look, you go right in, and there's an 8-pointed star there in the center. And that almost forms at the center of everything when it spins. So that's got to mean something. I don't know what, but and look, the more you go, the more kind of it comes. And that is like that pattern, like I said, it comes in symmetrical things. It appears in other things, and sometimes it's 5-pointed, sometimes it's 6-pointed. And this is another speed. I have to figure out what speed this is. But this one almost looks like it turns it into almost like a double, it almost inverts it. I don't know what it exactly is doing, but it's spinning so fast that it looks like it's almost formed itself twice or something. I don't even know how you really describe it, but yeah, it might be. It looks like an eye at the center of that one.
Yeah?
So yeah, you really know. I mean, there's even a mandala in the middle of that circle, which is pretty nuts. And so you can there's so many mysteries that I can't like, I don't think I'll ever get bored of it, because there's really so many things. And abstract things can lead to things like I'd like to try Jerry's his patterns up there, like some of those different chaotic things. You can't really mathematically figure that stuff out. So chaos is another whole interesting element to the thing. But a mix of chaos maybe and really plotted out perfection would also be very interesting. But as far as I don't know, is that break time? All right, yeah, we'll give you guys a break time. And I have the sheets there. If anyone wants to try anything, you can test it out. It's really because a lot of you guys paint kind of. I've seen you guys really paint like still lifes or different things. So you guys all have like a great amount of skill that I'm very curious about what you would do. Like, 'cause you can really, it's all about just kind of taking something. Like even if you do a big one, like taking an idea, like it could be anything, a frog, any type of animal, any type of anything, and then changing it a little tiny bit in each one. And then you get to see that change happen. And then one of the ways I like to think about it is to loop it. I think that looping it is the best possible way. So if a frog happens at one, like he's standing there at one point, like maybe he's like this, by the time it goes around again, you want to try and make his motion get back to that point, or wherever he's at, so that it can continuously kind of loop. And then, unless you're doing a spiral, then you can just keep it kind of progressively going. But there are a couple of the interesting concepts.
So how do you get the app?
It's on. I have a mandalamagicApp.com. I can give you guys the card, and it has it on there. But mandalamagicApp.com, and I believe it's still there. Or you can iTunes Store, type in Mandala Magic and John DiNapoli or something. It should come up. It's pretty good. It's only $2, I think. I'll probably bump it down to $1. It's been a couple of years, but it's pretty good. And the science one is just for me, so that one's I'm not gonna release that one. I'm gonna try and figure that one out. It would cost me more money to make it for other people to be able to get. So I'm gonna figure out the science though, and then I'll tell you all next time. But if anyone wants to try, I've got paper over there. There's pencils. There's erasers. It's very, I mean, even if you just sketch out something, you never know. It might be, you might make a discovery. That's what I always told the kids.
Is that a book down here in the bottom shelf?
Yeah, this is my, this is a book that I did, this is kind of a book that I just like wrote with all, this has got all my, kind of like all my, this was actually the spiral that I was talking about. This is the one that basically changed it all. And it's just such an in-depth, like intense spiral that's totally subconscious. So it's almost like I call it the ultimate Rorschach drawing. Because I've had people see roses in this, and I've had people see like demons and different things, like depending on their mindset. Like it really, like some, yep, just from spinning it. And this one, but this one's so, like, it's about 16 inches. And so when it spins, like it really, the spiral kind of comes in, and then it also kind of comes out. And there's a pinhole in the center, which I think adds to it. And like I used to hang it above my bed, and it would either, like if you're tired, it would lull you to sleep, and you'll be knocked out in like a minute. But if you're awake, it'll like keep you awake and keep you kind of energized. Yep. And then I put an elastic as the very kind of top thing, so that it retracts on itself and it spins. Like I found that elastics work they work the most, and then they spin the best and the slowest. Like. Yep. And with those ceiling ones, when they spin really fast, it's just like a blur. A lot of times, it's just kind of nonsense. But when they spin slow, that's when you can really take in the imagery and you can see it. And that's what I can't. That's one thing that I can't replicate on the app, because at those times with the elastic, that recoil moment when it goes, so it spins all the way one way, and then it like slows, and then it hits that point right there where it like starts to go back on itself, and it does something crazy in that moment. It does something really nuts, and then when it slowly goes back.
Yeah, because your eyes looking at one movement, all of a sudden it's reversed.
Yep.
So it's, yeah.
It does something very interesting. And there's a lot of times too when those other like the hypnotic thing, like sometimes you'll stare at it so long and then you look around the room and the whole room is spinning, or the spiral is like implanted on everything. But so these ones are a lot of my these are kind of pre-app stuff. These are a lot of just my mandalas that were my regular ideas. That they do some cool stuff when they're spinning with the app, but they don't really do much with the app. They really just kind of they're meant to spin slowly, and some of the bigger ones were actually.
You can control the app too, it goes slow, right?
Yep, you can, but it does. But it's for some reason like it doesn't have that recoil, that liveliness. Like when it's when you have them like physically standing there, also the angle is another factor, and I haven't been able to factor that into the app, but.
Just got a circle here on the app, you got the frame of it and everything else.
Well, on the app it's perfectly circular, but because you see pretty much this, and it spins. But when it's when you have these ones, you can get different. Like if I pull one of these up or down, there we go. Like you can get different angles like this, which create a whole different thing. So it creates a whole different spin besides the just purely flat spin. So, and then lighting is different. So there's really, I mean, I love these ones because they just like, they do something incredible. And then when they're slow, they come alive. It's like, it's kind of like, when a magic eye, I haven't really been able to see those too much. But when they hit you, or when a certain illusion hits you, and it looks like it's no longer 2D, it looks like it's like really sparkle almost. That like it has like a new like color. It's just extreme. I can't see those magic eye ones either. I know how to do that concept, but I can't really see it. And stereoscopic imagery is another kind of thing with the two spheres, and then you can make them. That's the kind of similar thing. Is that effect when it hits you? It's like.
Free drug, I guess, huh?
Yeah.